Hello and welcome to this edition of Dr. K's Psychobabble. And as we're continuing my series here on behavior management, we are taking a look at the role of choice that plays in the ABC Contingency Theory. Now, quick review, the ABC Contingency Theory is the model for operant conditioning that has the individual who's putting this plan into practice is able to identify antecedents that are the cues to behavior, and when the behavior occurs to a predetermined amount of accuracy or the frequency, there's a consequence. Now, we use this particular model to modify behavior that otherwise is not occurring. It's important, and maybe I need to review this, and we all need to review this when we're talking about behavior management plans. These are used when all else seems to fail. So the example I'm going to use today is if I put myself on a behavior management plan in order to encourage myself to exercise. Now, one would imagine that the joy of exercising and the feeling good and the in-shapeness and my ability to run up the stairs and play sports would be reinforcement enough, but for many of us, it's not. So we have to sort of determine a way to kind of sweeten the pot, let's say, by creating plans that hold us accountable and put reinforcers, things that we want, outside of a healthy body and the ability to run upstairs, because clearly that's not enough to keep that behavior going. Otherwise, I would be able to keep that behavior going. We sweeten the pot with a reinforcer, and we use behavior plans like this to modify our own behavior. Now, of course, in behavior analysis and the application of the ABC Contingency Theory in the classroom, professionals use this to modify behavior all the time. So we can look at this particular concept of choice as an important part of either one, whether you're using behavior plans to better yourself, to work with your kids, or in a professional setting. Choice is one of those factors that comes into play all the time. So we're going to take a look at a behavior plan at this point, and I'm going to use the example of me attempting to put myself and hold myself accountable to an exercise behavior plan. So here we have sort of like this table where we're going to be able to enter information into each one of these cells that identifies the actual behavior plan. So the antecedents for my particular behavior plan include Monday through Friday. This is the time period in which I'm going to want to engage on this behavior. So I'm looking at Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's the context in which I want the behavior to occur. Now, my behavior that I'm specifically identifying is to ride my bike 5 miles. So on Monday, I ride 5 miles, Tuesday, 5 miles, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so forth. If I am successful for a whole week, at the end of that week, I'm able to purchase a book. So here we have my ABC contingency plan that I put in place in order to hold myself accountable and reward myself for achieving riding my bike 5 miles each day, Monday through Friday. Now, this might be fine, but there is lots of opportunity here to refine this particular plan, but also to mix things up a little bit, to maybe work on other kinds of reinforcers, or maybe other kinds of behaviors and other kinds of antecedents that might help me to actually do this behavior better. So if we look at this particular behavior plan, let's look at where we can institute the concept of choice. First, let's start with consequences. Maybe I'm going along in this behavior plan and getting a new book every week is going fine, but let's just say for a given time, I'm not really I'm sort of tired of the type of book that I'm reading, or my favorite author hasn't come out with a book yet, but I recognize that there might be a movie that's coming out. So, how about I add a choice that if Monday through Friday, I ride my bike Monday through Friday, I can pick a book or I can go to a movie. And this can be the plan. So once I get that week done, now I have a choice. Do I want to get a new book or do I want to go see the latest movie as a way to reinforce that behavior? That's not the only place we can add choice. We can add choice over to the behavior itself. You think about riding my bike for 5 miles as a cardiovascular exercise. What if I added another kind of cardiovascular? I'm going to play some tennis. So now, Monday through Friday, I have the choice to either ride my bike or play tennis. And if I do that consistently throughout the week, I can get a book or a movie. We already have 2 different choices here, choices in behavior, choices in consequence. This is going to make things more encouraging. Not only is it a more effective behavior plan, but it might be more fun. And on a given day, I really don't feel like riding my bike, or a friend of mine called, let's go play tennis. And it's like, I don't want to, I can use that tennis opportunity as a way to meet my behavior plan. And when my friend's not available to play tennis, I can get on my bike. I had that kind of choice going on, and it enables me to more effectively manage my plan. Now, this is not the greatest example for choices within antecedents, but certainly there are all kinds of different ways in which we can do antecedents. So right now I'm looking at Monday through Friday. Maybe I can say just daily, and I'm going to include my weekends this time. Now, in behavior plans that we might look about, like say emotional situations, let's say you have a child that's working on their emotional expression of when they're frustrated, there might be numerous instances in which they get frustrated. So when you don't understand the math problem, when another child is picking on you, or when you feel lonely, those might be the antecedents, and then you can have their choice behaviors, and then you can have their choice consequences. So that the A choice category is a little bit better described when you're talking about different behaviors than this one. But nonetheless, in this particular example, I've opened up choices for me to describe the antecedent. It could be Monday through Friday, it could be daily, it could be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it could be those kind of things, that sort of set. And then my behaviors, I have a choice. I could add a third one, racquetball. Consequence could be book, movie, dinner out with my wife. It could be any one of those. And so this particular model of ABC really benefits from the idea of people making choices. Now, psychologically, choice is really important. Choices are what empower us to feel what we call agency. Now, agency is a word that describes my ability to act upon in the world. Like I have agency to do Psychobabble videos. So I put my resources together and I actually conduct that. And I do that of my own free will and of my own action, my own impulse. So agency is often described as the choices that we make. So when we build choices into a behavior plan, we are giving that individual, we're empowering that individual to have a sense of control over their situation. Now, when you're working with little kids in a classroom, oftentimes little children are not given a whole lot of choices. This is the structure of the classroom, this is what we're doing here, we're doing there, and that does less to teach decision making as it does to teach compliance. Now, to a degree, we want compliance. I'm not going to argue that there aren't times that we need compliance. When the fire alarm goes out, we're not talking about, well, should I just sit here or should I be in the closet or should I go outside? There's not a whole lot of choices going on there. And there are certainly opportunities when we're looking for compliance in behavior. But whenever we can, it's important to add that choice component, and it enriches that in that individual the notion that they are making decisions as to their behavior and the consequences that they can learn. And certainly this grows into an adult sense of internal locus of control. Essentially, if I have a deep understanding that I'm making these choices about what happens to me and what I do, and the reinforcement that is happening because of that behavior, then that maintains and builds up an internal locus of control. Choice, however, is a particular friend. It's a peculiar friend. It has some issues associated with it. So let's take a look at this concept of choice, and let's get our head wrapped around the best way in which we can enable choice in our behavior plans. First, right off the bat, options, a list of options is better than open-ended. So my behavior plan is a lot better if it lists book, movie, rather than choice of entertainment kind of thing. It's better to have concrete, specific things that we're looking for. If you need more flexibility in there, you have choice. You can list them. As adults, we can list a lot. We can have a whole menu of choices if we want. We can have a whole menu of behaviors and a whole menu of choices to encourage ourselves to be in shape. You can probably be very creative about that. But to list the actual choices works better than to simply leave it open-ended. For working with children, and I'm going to tell you, probably working with adults as well, working with anybody, we recommend no more than 2 or 3 choices in each category. So in my example, there were only 2 choices of behavior and only 2 choices of reinforcer. Now, I'm a pretty high-functioning individual. I could probably handle more than 2, 3, 4, 5 choices of exercise, 2, 3, 4, 5 choices of my reinforcer, but it doesn't work as well. So when we're designing these plans, even as adults, it's really important to identify reinforcers that we think are really going to be powerful in terms of supporting the behavior. Put 2 or 3 of them in there and work with that plan. If there's one that you never go to, let's say I had books, movie, and dinner out, and I'm just not going to the movies, or the pandemic hits and you can't go to the movies anymore, then find a 3rd one. Don't add a 4th one. Will be a probably better mode to deal with that particular situation. Now, in terms of the number of choices, if you have too many choices, it's reduced engagement and reduced connection to the choice that they make. This is often not only a source of behavior plans not working, but actually when the behavior plans make things worse. If you give kids too many choices, they start to gain some decision overload. They're overwhelmed by the choices that they have to make. There was a pretty popular video that I saw one time. It was a training video for behavior management, and the individual who came into the household saw right off that the problem parents were having with getting their kids to go to bed had to do with all the choices that they were giving their kids to make before they went to bed. One of them was which toothbrush. Now, with best intention, the parents had provided the child with a number of toothbrushes in order to pick the toothbrush, their favorite animal of the night or whatever. And certainly we can see the value of that. At the point that they came in and these kids were having, there's 2 kids in the household, both of them were having really huge problems going to bed. The boy child had 14 different toothbrushes to pick from. They just kept on adding the toothbrushes. It was just overwhelming and too much. And in the intervention, they took away all but 3 of those toothbrushes. Just as part of the intervention was to reduce the number of choices. Because then somebody get overwhelmed. You and I, when we're shopping for something, can we not sometimes feel overwhelmed as to what our choices are? Like, wow, even career choices can sometimes be overwhelming. We go in the store, we want to buy something, there's all kinds of different versions of it. It's empowering, but at the same time, it can also be overwhelming. And we have this concept of decision overload. And in addition to that, what we might call decision fatigue. Now, this happens if you too many times during the day, you have to make decisions. You get kind of tired of doing that. And that's a real phenomenon. And sometimes, literally, you just want to have somebody else make the decision. I'm speaking to this as an adult. Maybe some of you, I'm going to paint a story here of if I've had a day of having to make decisions with my students, having to make decisions within my department. I've been hiring individuals to teach classes for me. I've been making design decisions in my slideshows. I've been doing that all day. And I come home and my wife says, let's go out for dinner. And I said, that would be awesome. She says, where do you want to go? And I say, I don't care. I really mean it. I really mean I don't care. I simply don't want to make that decision. I'm fatigued. I don't want to make any more decisions. And that's kind of a way to be sometimes, and to be able to recognize that people can be overwhelmed with overload in terms of decisions, and they can just get tired of actually being in the position to make decisions. So communication, of course, is very important. I say I'm decision fatigued and I no longer want to make decisions. And truthfully, I don't care. So that's a little bit about choice. The power of choice, as you saw in my behavior plan, gives me options for me to maintain interest and engagement in being in shape, and different rewards that can come from that. If one of them is not working, I can replace with the other. I can actually experiment with different rewards to see which ones maintain my bike riding, racquetball, and tennis behavior. And then you can see very clearly that choice makes a very, very big difference in terms of the success of those particular behavior plans. So in your own plans, in the plans you're working with your kids, in the plans you're working with your friends and your husbands and wives, and in any professional settings, keep in mind that choice can play a very, very important role in the success of your behavior management plans. So, good day.